Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Issues and Answers, Computer Science in New Mexico. I'm Anthony Moreno. This year, New Mexico's Public Education Department announced that starting this fall, high school students in the state can take approved computer science courses as a math or science credit towards graduation. That announcement was welcomed because a bipartisan bill to basically do the same thing was hanging in legal limbo at the time after a court overturned Governor Susana Martinez's 2017 veto of the bill, which later was challenged by the governor prior to the Education Department's announcement. Students in New Mexico, especially in rural areas, don't have much access to computer science courses. However, programs like CS for All in the state and New Mexico's Supercomputing Challenge have given students an opportunity to learn computer science in their free time. To learn more, we traveled across the state and we visited a rural school district in the eastern part of the state to see how one dedicated teacher and New Mexico's Supercomputing Challenge have helped bridge the computer science education gap to help students learn basic CS skills. The village of Melrose may be small, but that hasn't stopped the school from competing in New Mexico's Supercomputing Challenge. After school on a Monday night, sisters Lily and Heidi McFarland, along with their 6th grade classmate Owen Knight, review comments from a recent presentation of their project that they say could help crop dusters improve safety and efficiency. These students had to understand how to use a program to write code, to solve problems, which for some students like Lily McFarland, took time.
We had no idea what to do for the net logo, and that was just the start of it. Like, we had to do the codes and we had to make a model for it on the computer. I didn't even know how to operate a computer, and that was pretty weird because I'm in this grade.
McFarland says understanding how to code and learn computational thinking was just like trying to get to know people.
You know how you make a new best friend and then you finally see what they're thinking or what they might think? It's kind of like that with a computer.
For over 16 years, the Melrose School District has set aside funding and students have worked concessions to be able to fund teams taking part in the challenge. Nearly a decade ago, a Melrose team won the state competition. It was a big win for the school district that doesn't offer computer science classes. This after-school activity is pretty much their only option, according to Superintendent Jamie Widener.
We don't have a computer science class, per se, but our science teacher takes care of that, Alan Daugherty, and kids get an opportunity to code and program computers based on something that they see a need for. And it gives them an opportunity to see things that they wouldn't necessarily get if he didn't do that program.
Any of the suggestions they made for you, you're going to try to incorporate?
After a full day of teaching science classes to middle and high schoolers and driving bus routes, Alan Daugherty, or Mr. D as he's referred to, returns to school to help Melrose students in the challenge. Daugherty says he took computer science courses while in college, and to help better prepare students for the competition, he also completed the Supercomputing Challenge training and the CS for All professional development course offered by the University of New Mexico.
It's given them a chance to get some entry-level computer science skills, and that's something that we wouldn't be able to offer here in a small school, very easily otherwise.
During the last 10 years, jobs in computer science have grown in the United States. A 2017 Department of Labor Statistics report showed 3.9 million were employed in the industry in 2015, up from 3.2 million in 2009. So does this supercomputing challenge help fill voids that exist in New Mexico when it comes to computer science education? Challenge Director David Kratzer says it can help fill that void and also works to provide various outreach programs to a younger group of students to address the wide gender gap in computer science jobs.
We realize that we need to get kids interested at 3rd, 4th, 5th grade level, and then we won't have this disparity in our gender gap.
Students from rural communities have used the challenge to find success. Marisol Gamboa is the oldest child of immigrants from Salem, New Mexico. She's a computer scientist and division leader at a national lab in California. While attending Hatch Valley schools in the early 1990s, she took part in the challenge. She says her school didn't even own a computer then and had to log in from a dummy terminal to a supercomputer at Los Alamos to work on their project.
I absolutely would not have had any exposure to computers until I would have been in college. And I don't know if I would have, ventured into unknown territory at that point.
However, Gamboa says the challenge is not a panacea for the lack of computer science opportunities in rural areas due to the high poverty rate across New Mexico.
Extracurricular programs like New Mexico Supercomputer cannot fill the gap due to those students will not be participating in those programs because they're out helping support their families, correct? So the school system has to provide something during school hours.
In Melrose, scholarship help has kept students attracted to its program. Alan Doherty says every senior who completes the Supercomputing Challenge has received a college scholarship. Doherty says as long as students want to take part in the challenge, he's willing to take the time to do what he can to help them.
And the kids enjoy this, and as long as they're happy with it, I enjoy working with them and helping them out with it. What to do to that one?
With the help of the program and Mr. D, these kids in this small village of 700 will see if their projects find success in New Mexico's Supercomputing Challenge, an experience that may lead to college and building a career in the field. To continue our conversation on computer science education, we are now joined by our panel of guests who have many years' experience in the computer science field with education and business. Please welcome Lauren Curry, a Las Cruces High School computer science teacher who reestablished the CS program at the high school and has successfully grown the program over the last few years. We are also joined by Swan Webb, a data scientist who has decades of experience working with data and logistics at the corporate level, and he has founded his own consulting company, The Results from Data Initiative, LLC. Also, we are joined by Dr. Shaun Cooper, a professor in NMSU's Computer Science Department. Dr. Cooper was also the former Associate VP and Chief Information Technology Officer at the university. He was responsible for information technology policy, planning, and compliance for the entire NMSU system. Also, Dr. Cooper has been heavily involved in the state's Supercomputing Challenge. Thank you all for being here. Shaun, I'd like to start with you. You've been involved in the state's Supercomputing Challenge for a while now. Could you share with us a little bit about your history with the program and why the program exists in the state, why the need for it?
So I'll start out with the genesis of the program. About 30 years ago, the computer science leaders in the education and the national labs decided they needed to have some exposure to computing science in the high schools to get them ready to go into the college and then eventually feed the national labs. And so their genesis was to expose teams of students at different high schools in a competition where they would program a problem that might be solved on a supercomputer. In those days, it was all a terminal type remote access. We heard from Marisol Gumbo earlier about that activity. It's evolved over the years, but the same foundations have been there. We want to expose students to computing science principles, to get them involved early, have them exposed to teamwork and solving problems. And we see that even though the platforms have changed, really, as we saw in Melrose, the challenges and also the opportunities for those students to look at computing science and have an exposure that allows them to have a career that might be really great for them and their family.
Now, being involved with it for as long as you have, I mean, you've seen students really go on to do some great things with the help of this challenge and computer science education in the state. You were a mentor to Marisol, is that correct?
I was a mentor to Marisol. I think her story is really good to point out. When we met with her at Hatch, and there was a team of us working with her, her goal was to pitch softball at New Mexico Highlands. That was her goal. 3 years later, she graduated her high school with $48,000 worth of scholarships and went to the University of New Mexico and got her degree in computing science. And afterwards, she learned some interesting skills during that interaction and mentorship. I had the opportunity to visit her this summer while I was in California, and you could still hear the language of, really putting, you said, I don't want to listen to somebody who wants to just have hot air. They need to get going and work on projects and get it done. And so she really had formed a skill set that really involved and made her life much better. And her family's doing well, and she's been able to buy her parents a new mobile home in Hatch. I think those are really great symbols of success in New Mexico.
Lauren, as a high school teacher teaching computer science, you teach intro to computer science. It's a first exposure to computer science for many students. However, you may know the difference between students who already have had some sort of computer science training, like those 6th graders we saw in the Supercomputing Challenge, students who may be taking computer science education in some form at junior high. Can you tell the difference in how they perform if they've had prior computer science education at any type of level when they get to your classroom?
Oh, absolutely. If they've had any exposure to the foundations of computer science, understanding what a loop is or what a variable means in computer science, then they have a leg up in the class. And what I really try to do is scaffold to each kind of group level of student and get them going so that the people who have some exposure can move forward, but the people that have no exposure can also move forward, and there's not a huge discrepancy between the two.
Now, you reestablished the program at Las Cruces High School. You started with, under 10 students, and now how large is that program?
Nearly 200. Mostly boys, still working on getting more girls involved. It's one of the big goals of our district in our computer science departments in our district is getting more girls involved. But the numbers are growing every year, and we're really happy to see that.
Okay, well, I definitely want to talk about that a little bit more as we go on in the program. Swan, the Supercomputing Challenge, computer science education, provides students in the state some opportunities to get some skills that may really help them in life, find jobs coming out of high school or college, or some sort of program that may allow them to make a decent salary starting off. Through your experience, what are some of the opportunities that exist here in the state and in the computer science industry?
Well, I think that computer science and all the things that it touches are everywhere now. There's no part of our lives that aren't affected by computers or computing devices, and all of that comes from computer science. The people that make those devices work, that understand it. Programming is the language of the future. It's how we express ourselves. It's how we build the tools of the future, be that machine learning or artificial intelligence or applications, devices. And there's virtually no business or organization that doesn't have a need for people with those skills.
Okay, now there's plenty of jobs right now in New Mexico that require a CS education or background. As somebody who has had the experience that you've had working at both the corporate level and starting your own business here, what types of things do you think people really need to consider when they're thinking about establishing some sort of computer science educational policy?
One, I think that the work that Lauren's doing and Shaun is great. It's starting to provide the foundation, but follow your passion in it, in computer science. There's many different paths to take. You can work on devices and hardware. You can work on building applications or websites, or you can really get into the data side of things. And I personally focus on the data side, but I just think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. And I would say just get involved, pick a project, pick something that you're passionate about, and then just go do it. And you'll teach yourself how to end up doing that. You'll figure out the tools that you need and how to make them work for you as you go and solve something that you're passionate about.
After teaching computer science, Shaun, at the college level for so many years, what were some of the things that you've noticed incoming students may have had difficulties with when they first started their computer science courses?
I think in general, our mathematics, if I had to stress with the audience, encourage your students to take a lot of math. Just the foundation of logical thinking is something that really is fundamental in computing science, and it helps you understand if you're doing data sciences, or do you have a false positive in the analysis that you're doing. So the mathematics is the first one that comes in. The other one is just having some confidence in knowing that employers might want to hire you. A lot of students don't think the things that they've done. I had a student that came out of Deming, and she'd been working as she was picking vegetables in the fields, and she goes, I don't want to put that on my resume. And I said, you know what? What tells me a good work ethic is a big way to getting into a next job. We know that when you're 16 and 17, you don't really have a lot of skill sets, but just the fact that you worked and you were willing to work in a place that was hard and you stuck to it tells me a lot. We're going to put that on your resume. So we work on the student's resume for doing those things so they can bridge to the next place.
Now, we're going to explore the economic impact of a computer science education as we move on. To address shortages of computer scientists, many states in the U.S. have started to ramp up CS education programs. We recently took a look at efforts that have been made to get more CS education in New Mexico and how it can help the economy.
This is an example of a microcontroller, and
Paige Prescott is president of the Computer Science Teachers Association of New Mexico. Her organization in 2017 pushed to get the legislature to pass Senate Bill 134, which allowed for high school students to take CS courses for math or science credit towards graduation. Prescott says the legislation had major support.
we had the business community was there saying that this was important. We had the union saying we support this. We had school districts saying they wanted it, primarily because it was not a mandate. It was simply something that was a choice.
Most students in New Mexico do not have access to a computer science course. The state isn't the only one lacking in computer science options. A 2016 Information Technology and Innovation Foundation report tells the story. It said the last study of high school transcripts in 2009 showed only 19% of high school seniors took some form of computer class, down 6 percentage points from 2000. The report also showed major gender gaps. Only 14% of female students took a computer course compared to 24% of males. In a Skype interview, Shaun Roberts, director of state policy with Code.org, said having foundational knowledge of computers is a 21st century life skill. And when states pass policy to offer computer science as credit, it opens doors to traditionally underrepresented minorities and female students.
When it counts toward graduation requirements, you naturally have more students that are able to take that as part of their regular schedule. So you increase diversity of participation with those type of policies.
Roberts says passing computer science standards is also an important part of understanding what computer science is.
Computer science is not being a user of technology or being able to use apps, although that's certainly important. And it's not keyboarding, which again is an important skill for students to have, but that's not what we're talking about when we talk about computer science.
Shaun Roberts says Arkansas has expanded computer science access across the state, and Indiana and Wyoming also have passed bills to expand computer science in grades K through 12. Anthony Owen is director of computer science education in Arkansas. Owen says expanded computer science education beyond high school is also important.
We saw that if we only focused on that we would continue down the road that the computer science community seems to have a problem with right now, which is overrepresentation of white and male individuals in not only the classes but the industry.
Owen says Arkansas has dedicated $10 million over the next 4 years to increasing computer science education. He also says the state has established professional learning hubs to address a shortage of trained computer science educators. Shaun Roberts says having CS standards and trained teachers is key to educating students.
We're only going to go as far as teachers take us in this. They're the most important and crucial part to expanding computer science education.
To prepare for attracting different industries looking for tech-savvy employees, nearby states like Colorado have passed CS funding measures and are working on setting up computer science standards, while Texas requires that all high schools offer computer science education. Jennifer Navarez is with New Mexico TechWorks. Her organization is trying to build a pipeline for education, enterprise, and employment opportunities in New Mexico. I met her in Santa Fe, where she told me it's critical for the state to offer more CS education because technology is everywhere.
So you'll find it in cars, You'll find it in industrial applications. You'll find tech in healthcare. You'll find tech in tech, software development, and systems that are literally data management, cybersecurity, etc.
Matt Brown is Santa Fe's Director of Economic Development. He says a more computer science savvy workforce will help grow companies in the tech sector.
And all of them are reliant in some way on different aspects of computer science, from basic programming to interface design to AI and like computational analysis that is way over my head. So at every kind of level, that type of knowledge and skills would be incredibly beneficial to that industry inside of Santa Fe. But then also, you just think broadly about every industry.
While many students, educators, and the tech industry await the next step, progress continues. School districts, tech learning programs, and dedicated teachers continue to do their part to ensure that some New Mexico students have an opportunity to gain CS skills.
Our panel joins us now to talk more about CS education and how it can make a difference in the state's economy. Lauren, as a computer science teacher, the state made an announcement that could enhance computer science education with the students being able to take approved computer science courses towards graduation. They could be counted towards math or a science credit. As a CS educator, how do you see that making a difference in the education and the state?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I think that we need to eventually require all high school students to take a computer science course if we truly want to prepare them for the industry that they're facing when they get out of school. But I do think that this is a great step in the right direction. I think that we'll see boosts in computer science course offerings and also computer science course numbers. So we're thrilled in Las Cruces for that bill to have been passed.
One of the things that when I talked with Anthony Owen from Arkansas, he mentioned that companies were contacting him and wanting to learn a little bit more about the programs that they have installed in that state. And one company in particular actually moved to the state because of their initiative towards computer science education. Shaun, I wanted to ask you real quick, seeing how different states are making these policies, what are your thoughts on how it can really grow the next generation of students who are going to be taking computer science at the university level?
Well, clearly, a state that emphasizes computing science that we saw earlier will help the students get that foundation that we need. The second one is that we are now seeing a change in industry where we've had a lot of people talk about exporting our students out to other states because the industry is homed at some other place. But now we see local businesses like electronic caregiver here in Las Cruces, a lot of consulting businesses like data and analytics like yours, Swan, and others that we see that people can actually work in New Mexico. And I think that's a really good economic boom for New Mexico because people can stay in New Mexico, earn money, bring money from other states into New Mexico, and then spend those dollars inside of New Mexico. Our students bring a lot of diversity. We talk about diversity, and that's one of the things that Arkansas brings, and we also have that diversity. And I think diversity is very important. I know that one of the space labs used to have an engineering where they would have two companies build everything they put on the space lab, because if there was an engineering flaw because of some decision that was made, they could have a backup that was not made from the same decision making. And we know from my experience in a CIO is that having a diverse staff helped us have a better exposure to our platforms that we built.
Swan, as a business owner, seeing the state take a move towards more computer science education, what are some of your thoughts on that as a business owner?
We have to have the foundation. We have to have the kids coming out of high school that have a strong math background and a strong computer science background, or at least an interest in computer science that they can then continue at the university level or through other ways, through online courses. Virtually every major university in the United States now offers online courses that you can take from wherever you are, including rural New Mexico. But we see the states around us like Arizona, Utah, Colorado just really exploding with their with their computer science industry or industries related to computer science, and we have all those same advantages. You know, we have the great public lands, we have the great culture, we have the great outdoor opportunities, the things that attract computer science people to places like Arizona and Utah and Colorado. We have all of that and more here in New Mexico. And I think, as Shaun said, that you know, the one edge that I think we really have over the other Intermountain West states is we have a bilingual workforce. And that is a big deal. You know, people aren't just making software for the United States, they're making it for all over the world. You know, companies like Amazon or Adobe or whomever, they're global companies. And, you know, this whole hemisphere speaks Spanish except for us.
I just had about a minute left before we move on, but being bilingual, I remember talking with Marisol, Shaun, and she mentioned that being bilingual actually was able to help her learn coding and learn computer science. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think she shared a story about the fact that she could see the world in two different views, one in English and one in Spanish, and those made her mind actually create a third dimension of connecting those in computing science. And I was really telling about how those experiences that she had growing up and then able to apply them to her successes.
Now, one place that's been successful in establishing more computer science education has been Las Cruces. Las Cruces Public Schools has the most students enrolled in computer science courses in the state. To learn more, we visited 2 high schools to meet 2 dedicated computer science teachers, one of who is on our panel, to see how they are helping students learn CS skills.
So, any other suggestions for how?
It's the end of the year, and Las Cruces High School teacher Lauren Curry is leading her intro to computer science students in a discussion. Curry reestablished the computer science program at the high school and has been teaching computer science for the past 5 years.
I received training for it my first year. I had 7 boys in my class, in the first computer science class I taught. And now I have almost 200 students enrolled, and I'm teaching a sequence of 5 courses.
Curry says that all of her courses are aimed at getting students to understand computational thinking.
Because if they can graduate understanding those major concepts, no matter what program they go into, they're going to have a leg up.
Students now having the opportunity to take computer science as a math or science credit is a big win for computer science in the state, according to Curry. However, she says she would like to see a requirement that every student graduating from a New Mexico high school has some sort of computer science credit.
So I think we're going to see more kids taking computer science classes, which is really good. What I would like to see, and I think what most computer science teachers at our level would like to see, is a requirement that every student who's graduating from a New Mexico high school has some sort of computer science credit in their toolbox, because it will only help them. It can't hurt them.
One of Curry's more advanced students is Brianna Widner.
It was 6th or 7th grade. I joined this after-school club called GUTS. And it was basically, they taught you how to program in StarLogo, which is a block coding, which means you have little blocks and you piece them together to make different types of code. And that was where I really started with it. And so after that, I took a course my 8th grade year on computer science, where I learned a little bit more block coding and all. But I didn't really get into it too much until my freshman year, when I took the Intro to Video Game Design course, and I just fell in love with the field. That's when I decided that I was definitely going into the computer science field.
Widner says that learning computational thinking has helped her in other courses as well.
Because it helps you learn how to break different tasks down. Because I know one of the topics we focused on this year in the modeling and simulation part of our class was decomposition, where you take a big problem and you just break it down into little steps. And I found that makes it so much easier to take on a lot of different tasks, even in my other classes. Like in English, if I'm writing an essay, I'll be like, okay, what are the main bits that I have to do? And I'll tackle each of those separately before putting it together, and it makes it 10 times easier to get stuff done.
Curry says that all of her courses are aimed at getting students to understand computational thinking.
I think it's an integral part of every workforce. And so whether you're planning on going to college or not, whether you're majoring in computer science in college or not, understanding computational thinking is key to really understanding how societies function and how technology works, and it's where the whole entire world is going. So we would actually be doing our students a disservice not to offer these courses.
Across town at Centennial High School, Melody Hageman teaches 3 different types of computer science courses. Hageman, a 2017 Golden Apple recipient, says she was teaching middle school science when she also discovered a CS program called Project Guts.
Through that program and through the New Mexico Supercomputing Challenge, I learned about an opportunity called New Mexico CS for All, and I got to be one of the teachers in the first cohort that year, and they basically trained us to teach their CS for All, like freshman level computer science course in high schools throughout the state.
On the day we visited, Hageman was grading her students as they presented a Java passion project. One of those students was Jenna McClellan, who took her love for Sudoku and created a challenging game which she calls humanity versus technology.
I really like playing Sudoku, but I wanted to have a twist on the game, so I decided to implement a computer opponent to make it more of a competition rather than just a one-player game.
This is McClellan's 3rd year of taking computer science courses, and she already has found success. She was among 50 high school women across the country honored for aspirations in computing, and she won a congressional app challenge by creating an app to help people with food allergies. People like her mom.
My mom actually has food allergies, so every day I see how hard it is for her to manage those allergies on top of cooking for our family or eating out. So I decided to just make the app to help make life a little bit easier for her and others like her.
McClellan says that she wants high school students to know that they can create apps that can make a difference. It's that empowerment that Hageman says she is working towards every day. She says it's important for people to not just be users of technology, but understand how it works.
When they get to actually go in and program, they learn how the technology is being created, and they also can start to better understand implications of such technology. And I also think it's just a useful skill that enables students to virtually leapfrog poverty. They can, if they are proficient enough in programming, get a job that is going to pay really well, no matter where they are or where they're from.
Hageman says that when it comes to recruiting more female and underrepresented minority students to computer science, using the most successful practices have worked, along with creating a welcoming environment for students to pursue their passion.
So we try to do things like minimize stereotype threat, make it a warm, welcoming environment with, artwork on the walls and not like superhero posters, things like that. But as far as the lessons, allowing pair programming and cooperative learning is going to reach female and underrepresented minority students much more effectively than just making them program on their own all the time. And then we try to give opportunities for them to kind of go after what they're interested in. So that may be Genius Hour in our intro class, or a Java passion project, or the performance tasks in CS principles. They get to kind of choose an area that they're interested in and run with that. And I find that that really engages students and empowers everyone who's involved.
Getting more students involved in computer science can only help them discover the opportunities that the field may provide. Opportunities that these 2 teachers in Las Cruces and others across the state hope to see. To learn more of a student perspective on computer science education, we are now joined by Skype with one of the students we met in the last story. Please welcome Jenna McClellan from Centennial High School in Las Cruces. Jenna is taking part in a prestigious computer science camp at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Jenna, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me.
We're really excited to have you on. Let's start off in learning a little bit about what you're doing right now. Tell us about the camp that you're at this summer.
Yeah, so the camp that I'm at is called the Summer Academy for Math and Science, also called SAMS. It basically accepts about 100 students from across the nation, and you get to come to Carnegie Mellon, live on campus, and study programming as well as math and science. Right now, as part of the program, I'm working on a project where I get to create an Alexa skill, so it's been a great experience.
So how's it going so far? Are you doing this, is it a solo project or are you with a team? What's going on?
I'm working with a team of 4 of us in total, and we're all coming from very diverse backgrounds, so it's really awesome. We're making this Alexa app to help students study. You'll be able to study flashcards by voice alone, so you'll be able to use your Alexa device to help you out in the classroom.
Well, that's very exciting. So what really gave you the idea to come up with that? What did your group have to do to kind of come up and with the idea to do that? Was there a lot of group input and a thought process going into that?
There was definitely a lot of thought process behind it. We spent a couple days brainstorming ideas. We really wanted an app that we could all use in our own personal lives to help us out. And since we all spend a lot of time studying, we thought, what better to make than a quiz app that could help us out and help us to get better grades.
Well, that's very exciting. Now, you're no stranger to creating apps. You created an app that helps people with perhaps some sort of food allergies. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so earlier this year, I worked on an app called the Allergen Cookbook, which basically is an app that helps people with food allergies keep track of their recipes and keep track of their meal plans. I was inspired to make it because my mom has always suffered from food allergies, so I really just wanted to help out people like her and people with her condition to make their lives a little simpler. That app actually took me to the White House, and I got to go to an event called the House of Code and show it off at the Capitol, which was really awesome. And at the moment, the app isn't on the App Store, but I'm really working as much as I can to hopefully have it there soon.
Well, that's really exciting. I want to hear a little bit more about your history with computer science education. How long have you been studying computer science?
So I actually didn't get involved in computer science until I was a freshman. I signed up for the course because it seemed interesting, and that was the best decision I could have made. Since taking it, I just loved it. I fell in love with the subject, and I've taken it every year since then. I really just like that rather than listening to lectures or just doing homework, you really get to be hands-on in code, you get to make your own projects, and you get to work alongside others to do some awesome things with technology.
Was there a special moment where you just realized that this is what I want to do? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I think it wasn't until my sophomore year that I really started taking computer science seriously. There's this award called the NC-WIT Aspirations Award. NC-WIT stands for the National Center for Women in Information Technology. And I applied for the award sort of on a whim. My teacher advised me to, and I did not expect to win it nationally, but when I got to win the award and meet all these other girls who were very interested in computer science and very passionate about it, I think that really just inspired me to really enjoy the subject and want to take it to the next level.
Now, that was quite the honor. You were one of 50 young women across the country with aspirations in computing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So, okay, you get the award and then you're working your way through high school. What are some of the things that were kind of challenging that took you a moment to really grasp when it comes to computer science education?
I think some of the biggest challenges are just the lack of resources within the New Mexican area. Many of my friends on a national level have been coding since they were very, very young, and those kind of resources just aren't available in Las Cruces. Most students don't start programming until high school, or they never program at all because they don't think that it's an interesting subject or think it'll be challenging. And so I think that Las Cruces really lacks in encouraging youth to really like computer science and like technology.
So you've noticed that, being in these other camps and these other honors, you've been alongside students who have been coding since elementary school?
Yeah, it seems that in a lot of bigger cities especially, that computer science education is really encouraged from a young age, and I really wish that it could be that way in Las Cruces as well.
Oh, so what do you think, from your experience, could you tell us a little bit more about why you think that is such a key thing for students to have? Why do you think it's so important to pick up coding at such a young age?
I think that once you reach high school, by that point, a lot of your interests have already been solidified. Students know what they like, students know what they don't like, and it's a lot harder to interest students in computer science if it's something new. Whereas if you show children at a younger age how amazing technology is, they'll really be interested in it, and they'll see how awesome of a subject it is, and that love will just continue on throughout their educational life.
I've been interviewing students in different classrooms here in Las Cruces and across the state. One of the things I've noticed is that there aren't as many female students as male students. Has that been your experience here in Las Cruces?
Unfortunately, it has. In some of my more introductory level computing courses, the ratio of women to men was about equal, but last year I was one of only 2 girls in my computer science class. So I really just want to encourage any girls, no matter what age or no matter their interest in computing, to try it out, because you never know what you'll like.
What are some of the barriers that you think are in place preventing more young women from getting into computer science education?
I think one barrier just has to do with girls in general not thinking that computer science is a field for them. From a young age, it's always taught that technology and math and science are a field made for men. It's taught that women should be in other occupations and that women shouldn't have a place in computer science, when that's totally false. And women should have a place in computer science. Women should be able to help make the technology to shape the world. And I think that really just changing the societal view of how STEM is treated would help more women to pursue computing careers.
One of the things New Mexico's Public Education Department did towards the end of last year was make an announcement that students starting this fall in high school could take a computer science course, an approved computer science course for math or science credit towards graduation. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's going to increase more participation in computer science education?
I think absolutely. I think some students might be deterred from computer science because it's only an elective credit. They might not see it as helping them graduate or meet those requirements to graduate. But now that it's actually giving students credit, that's just another incentive to try out computing. I think it's a great idea.
All right, Jenna, we just have about a minute left, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about you and your goals as you wrap up this camp and continue on through high school. What are some things you want to accomplish in computer science?
I think I just want to pursue my knowledge of the subject. Even though I've done a lot already, I'm still just a beginner, so I'm really looking forward to learning more computer science. In terms of college, applications are coming up, so I've been focusing a lot on that, and I just hope to study computer science someday and eventually work for a tech company.
All right, Jenna McClellan, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck this summer as you continue on with your camp.
Thank you so much.
We now continue our conversation with our panel on CS education. Lauren, I want to start with you. Let's talk about teacher capacity. Now, this is something you deal with every day as a computer science teacher. You mentioned you teach over 200 students. To increase computer science education in the state, what are some of the things you think the state can do to make sure that there's more computer science teachers? Let's talk professional development.
Okay, so there's not a ton of professional development hosted by the state itself. We generally bring in professional development from either a university in the area or some sort of organization like CSTA. things like that. So it would be nice if we had more funding for the technology for computer science. We kind of have to scrape for our technology, and also just some sort of entity that provides the professional development. We have tons of support from New Mexico State University, tons of support from UNM, from CSTA. Code.org came down this summer and did workshops for teachers that are new to teaching computer science principles. But I think if the state were more on board with funding the professional development, that would be a very kind of a breath of fresh air.
You mentioned Code.org. According to some data that they presented in 2017, only 29% of students taking AP computer science tests were female. What are some of the things that you are doing to make sure that you can recruit more female students to computer science courses?
Melody mentioned combating stereotype threat. It is typically viewed as a male field, and so I think it helps that the teachers in our district, 2 of them are female, so that helps, just having a female teacher at the head of the classroom. But the way you decorate your classroom, the topics you decide to teach in order to deliver certain information, they all can help to bring more females into the field. I think that it's a word of mouth sort of thing. So once there are more females taking computer science classes, they'll tell their friends that it's not just a boys' club anymore, that they're welcome. And if you have that kind of artwork on the walls that's welcoming to in either gender, and you host things that and teach in a way that girls are attracted to, like teach fashion design through computer science through fashion design, philanthropic projects, things that traditionally girls are attracted to, then you can really start to bring in more females.
So
Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
As well? The New Mexico State University Computer Science Department has been running a Young Women in Computing program for several years. It was first funded by the National Science Foundation, and now it's done through other grants. And we bring cohorts of young women from 6th grade all the way up to high school, and have them come to summer camps that are only female. And the idea is to have them be comfortable, like Lauren talked about, and not make it a stereotype of male-only kind of platform or white male-only platform. And we see a larger number of participants in our undergrad program from that activity. And then similarly this summer, Verizon just injected a lot of money into a program for minorities for mid-school boys to have exposure to computing science this last 3 weeks. And so there are some corporate and other entities that are involved with it. It would be nice to have a culture that did it instead of just some injections of it.
Swan, what are some of the things you think that the industry can do to really kind of break down these stereotypes?
You know, I think they're just that they're stereotypes, that they're not actual reality. And you know, no software project that I'm familiar with recently has been, you know, somebody working off on their own. These are very collaborative, very cooperative efforts of generally lots of people solving important problems. And so in business, you know, these software teams or data teams are, you know, frequently reporting their results up to the CEO or the C-level executives. They have a lot of visibility. They're solving something that's important, and it is cooperative. And it's working together. It's not the old stereotype where somebody's like in some back room, you know, with reams of, you know, computer cards or something. It's teamwork. It's social. It's way more social than people think.
Shaun, you mentioned some things that New Mexico State University is doing and has done to increase diversity in the industry and break down some of the stereotypes. With what you've seen, is getting students when they're younger, does that make a difference in increasing diversity?
Absolutely. You know, I was listening to an article on one of the public radios, and a gentleman, the physicist, I can't remember his name, but he said when mid-school kicks in, young women tend to want to walk away from science. And so he said we need to interact with them prior to getting into mid-school, because if they have a direction that includes science and computing science, we're going to have a better exposure to it. And the same thing with a lot of cultural. Hey, you know, we're going to get in there because there's not going to be any successes. I think people like Marisol Gamboa, this is a great story. So I visited Marisol. She has 2 young boys, and she said, you know what was interesting? My boys asked me, can boys be computer scientists? So she has changed that stereotype in her family.
Lauren, you get many students who are freshmen just out of junior high. I mean, is that some of the things that you've noticed as far as the students that you're getting is that if they perhaps got computer science at a younger age, could that really make a difference?
Absolutely. I attended a workshop where Paige Prescott gave an introduction and talked about how students really do establish their passions in elementary school. So whether it's going to be sports or drama or singing or playing an instrument, it's kind of pre-established by the time they get to me. So it is hard to reshape their way of thinking and get this onto the track thinking, kind of communicating that it's really for everybody and anybody can benefit from it. And so I think, again, requiring that every student take it would give that exposure, but also getting in early where they are starting to establish these passions and decide, very early on, kids decide, I don't like math, I don't like science, I don't like English, whatever it is. They know what they don't like, but we need to show them that computer science is something they can like from a very early age.
Now, the state obviously made the announcement to allow for students to take computer science for a math or science credit towards graduation. Other states have made different moves, established standards for computer science education, more funding for computer science education, requiring that all schools implement some sort of computer science education. Obviously, this takes time. As a teacher, working at the high school level, how does, I guess, change really happen? Does it happen at kind of slow with this announcement? I mean, what are some of the things you're expecting just with this announcement?
Well, so the announcement kind of came through late in the year. It came through and it felt like the next week we were registering students. So the ability to spread the news, if you will, that, hey, these specific courses count for science and math credits was kind of lost for this year as far as when our registration time was. So I think that definitely having a year to really vamp up the information and get it out to every student, that if you aren't necessarily interested in chemistry or calculus, think about taking AP Computer Science Principles. I think it's a really good opportunity to give students that aren't really excited about those upper level science and math courses an opportunity to take something that's a little different and still earn that credit.
What are some of the things you do when you are registering students in computer science courses to really let them know that it's more than maybe just, the stereotypical vision of somebody who's a coder or somebody who is working in some sort of computer science field?
Code.org has a plethora of videos available exhibiting different fields that you can go into with a computer science major under your belt. The other thing I like to do is visit science and math courses before we register to give little presentations on different things my students have done. I especially like to send my students out to talk to different classes about the things that they're doing in my class. We participate in Hour of Code, which is it's during Code Week, which is in December, and what I do is I have my students go to math and science courses and teach mini 30-minute lessons. So their peers are up in front of them instructing, and they have this opportunity to see some of the different things that we do that aren't straight up programming. They're not a lot of math, so that they understand that, yes, math is part of it for sure, but there's a lot more to it, and no matter what your background is or who you are, you can find something that represents you well in the field.
Swan, I want to ask you something about the industry and as far as it's going. What are some of the things you think are happening in the industry that's really going to change that perspective of students who may become more interested in computer science at a younger age?
I think just the pervasiveness of computing in our everyday lives gives people introductions to it. I mean, we can't open a refrigerator without seeing, a computing device now. And so it's everywhere around us, and I think probably most importantly, or perhaps, the worst part is that we have them on our phones all the time. We're constantly being shown apps and data and the things that computer science can do. So I think just that exposure to it makes it where people are going to see it more and be more interested in it.
Shaun, I want to ask you something. You've worked decades in educating people in computer science. What do you think that there are some things that people who are making policy decisions should consider when implementing computer science education policy?
Well, I know you have to start looking at what is going to happen in the future. Where are we headed? Autonomous vehicles, and as an example, that we're going to have a big industry change in the next 10 years. There will be no more traffic jams in LA. You know, people will be able to drive 3 miles in 10 minutes instead of 3 hours. And you know, just we see the changes there. We see changes in the data that's happening. So if I were a policy developer, I would say, I don't want to just look and address what we think is happening now, but look at the future, what we really expect is coming, and put into the system those things at the beginning of that timeline, at 6th, 5th grade, 4th grade, so that they're ready and walking out the door, because they say that half of the jobs in computing science aren't even known to us right now. So you have to kind of be futuristic about what's going to happen next.
What type of opportunities, Swan, do you see ahead of us in the future, you know, from the industry? Are we going to be at a loss of computer science workers here in the future if the education isn't there?
I think we already are. I mean, just in the data world alone, there's over 100,000 positions in the United States that are unfilled right now. You can't go to any job search site and not see, you know, in big cities, literally thousands of unfilled jobs for data analysts and data scientists. So we're already there. But the same things, you know, in the networking side or cybersecurity, you know, there's just all these new fields and new opportunities for people with a computer science background that they're exploding.
Lauren, we just have a little bit of time left, but how do you see computer science education changing here as technology and computer science is changing?
I see it growing. One thing that we do through NMSU is we host what we call CS for HS, where we bring in teachers that are English teachers, that are art teachers, that are science teachers, and we teach them how to introduce computational thinking into their classrooms, into their kind of traditional core classes. And so that's going to keep growing. We'll see it in their core classes, and then we'll see more and more computer science classes offered as well.
All right, well, we are unfortunately out of time, but we want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our guests, Dr. Shaun Cooper, Swan Webb, and also Jenna McClellan, who joined us via Skype, and Lauren Curry. Thank you all for being here for our Issues and Answers Computer Science Education. I'm Anthony Moreno.